Reality can be far scarier than fiction. These stories, told in the words of those who experience them, are proof that the line between the natural and the supernatural is thinner than we think. Here are 3 terrifying true stories that will stay with you long after the lights go out. This happened in late 2019, a few weeks before Christmas. I was driving home from visiting my friend out in a rural part of Indiana. It's one of those areas where streetlights are practically non-existent, and the roads feel like they stretch forever. That night was especially eerie because a thick fog had rolled in. Not just any fog, but the kind that seems alive, swirling under your headlights like it's trying to get in the car. It was just past midnight, and I hadn't seen another car for miles. I slowed down to about 20 miles an hour. I had the music turned low, trying to focus on the road ahead. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a shadow in the fog. But as I got closer, I realized it was a woman walking along the side of the road. She was wearing a long coat that dragged slightly on the ground and her hood was up, but what stopped me cold was her feet. She was barefoot, walking on wet, icy pavement in the middle of the night. Against my better judgment, I slowed down even more and rolled down the window. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" I called out. She didn't stop walking, but turned her head slightly, just enough for me to catch a glimpse of her face. Her eyes were bloodshot, her skin pale as a ghost, and her lips were trembling like she was saying something I couldn't hear. I don't know what came over me, but I felt this overwhelming need to help her. I pulled over and got out of the car. The cold hit me immediately, biting through my jacket. I kept a safe distance and called out again. "Ma'am, do you need a ride? Are you hurt?" She finally stopped and turned around fully. That's when I realized something was seriously wrong. Her coat was soaked, her hands were filthy, and there was this wild, desperate look in her eyes. "Don't let him find me," she whispered. Her voice was raspy, almost like she hadn't spoken in days. Before I could ask her what she meant, she took off, running faster than anyone should have been able to in that condition. I just stood there stunned, staring into the fog where she disappeared. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural growl coming from the woods on the other side of the road. It wasn't an animal, at least not one I'd ever heard before. It sounded human, but distorted, like a man trying to imitate a wolf. Panic hit me like a freight train. I bolted back to my car, locked the doors, and floored it. As I sped away, I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that woman or whatever was chasing her standing in the road. But there was nothing, just fog. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the encounter in my head, trying to make sense of it. The next morning, I called the local police to report what I'd seen. They said they'd send someone out to check the area, but when I followed up later, they told me they hadn't found anyone. No footprints, no signs of a struggle. Nothing. To this day, I don't know who or what she was running from, but sometimes when I drive that road at night, I swear I can still hear that growl in the distance. A few years ago, my college friends and I decided to go on a hiking trip in the Rockies. There were 5 of us, me, my girlfriend Sarah, and our friends Matt, Emily, and Jake. We were young, adventurous, and frankly, a little naive. We thought we were prepared, but Mother Nature had other plans. By late afternoon, the snow started falling, and it didn't take long for us to realize we were lost. The trail markers had disappeared under the snow, and our phones had no signal. The wind was picking up, and it was getting colder by the minute. Just when we were starting to panic, Jake spotted it, a small cabin nestled between the trees. It looked abandoned, but at that point we didn't care. It was shelter. The cabin was run down with half the roof caved in and snow piled up against the door, but inside it was surprisingly intact. There was an old fireplace, a couple of rickety chairs, and even some dusty blankets in the corner. We tried to make the best of it. Sarah and I huddled together near the fire while Matt and Emily explored the cabin, joking about how it looked like the set of a horror movie. Jake found some carvings on the wall, names and dates like people had been there before us, but some of the carvings were strange. Symbols that didn't make any sense, like spirals and jagged lines. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to a loud thud. I thought maybe snow had fallen from the roof, but then I heard it again, this time followed by scratching. It sounded like it was coming from inside the walls. I nudged Sarah awake and she whispered, "Probably just mice." But the noises got louder. The scratching turned into tapping and then whispers. Faint, but distinct, like someone was talking just out of earshot. Matt finally yelled, "Who's there?" And the whispers stopped. For a second, everything was silent. Then the front door slammed shut. The wind outside was howling, but this wasn't the wind. The door had been open all night to keep the smoke from the fire from choking us. Now it was shut tight. That's when we saw the footprints. They were small like a child's and they were wet, water pooling on the floorboards where they ended. But there was no one there. We grabbed our stuff and bolted, hiking through the snowstorm until we found a ranger station just after dawn. The ranger told us the cabin had been abandoned for decades, but other hikers had reported strange noises and sightings in the area. He said some of them even carved warnings into the walls, though he didn't know what the symbols meant. I still can't explain what we heard or saw that night, but I'll never set foot in that forest again. This happened when I was 16 years old. My parents had gone out of town for the weekend, leaving me home alone for the first time. At first, I was thrilled. I mean, what teenager wouldn't be? A whole weekend of freedom, no curfew, no one checking up on me. I'd planned a lazy night, popcorn, Netflix, maybe staying up way too late scrolling through Instagram. It was shaping up to be a perfect evening. The first few hours were uneventful. I texted my friends, watched a horror movie, ironic I know, and browsed TikTok. By around 11 p.m., the house started to feel different. It wasn't anything obvious, just this strange stillness like the air had gotten heavier. I told myself I was just spooking myself because of the movie I'd watched, but I remember how the quiet felt oppressive, like the house itself was listening. At about 1 a.m., I was curled up on the couch half asleep when the phone rang. Not my cell, our landline. That alone was weird because nobody ever called it. I froze for a second, just staring at the handset as it rang and rang. Finally, I answered. "Hello?" I said, my voice shaky. At first, there was silence. Then a man's voice came through. Calm, almost friendly. "Hello?" he said. I asked who it was, and he paused for a moment before saying, "I'm outside." My heart felt like it stopped. "Who is this?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. But he didn't answer. The line went dead. I stood there, clutching the phone, staring at the window over the kitchen sink. The curtains were drawn, but suddenly I was very aware of how vulnerable I was. Anyone could be out there watching me. I went around the house, locking every door and window. They were all already locked, but I checked them twice just to be sure. I even turned off most of the lights, hoping whoever it was wouldn't see me moving around inside. For a while, I stood by the window in the living room, peeking out into the yard. It was dark, but the streetlight near our driveway cast just enough glow for me to see the trees swaying in the wind. No one was there. Or so I thought. Then the phone rang again. This time I picked it up with shaking hands. Before I could even say anything, the voice spoke again. He said my name this time, slow and deliberate. "I can see you," he whispered. My blood ran cold. I slammed the phone down and grabbed my cell to call the police. As I was dialing, I heard something. A creak, like a floorboard settling. It was faint, but unmistakable, and it was coming from inside the house. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and started moving room to room, turning on lights, trying to convince myself that the noise was nothing. But the house was empty. Every closet, every corner, no one was there. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. That's when I saw him, standing just beyond the porch light, partially hidden by a tree. He was tall, wearing a dark hoodie with the hood up. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his gaze like a weight pressing down on me. I ducked out of sight and called 911. I whispered into the phone, begging them to come quickly. The police showed up within minutes, their flashlights cutting through the yard, but by the time they got there, he was gone. They searched the property and the surrounding streets, but didn't find anyone. I thought that was the end of it, that I was safe now that the cops were here. But as they were leaving, one of the officers stopped and pointed at the front door. "You should see this," he said. Carved into the wood right under the peephole were the words, "See you soon." The officer told me to stay with a neighbor or call my parents, but I couldn't think straight. All I could do was stare at those words. I didn't sleep that night. Even after my parents came home the next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still out there watching. It's been years, but every time the phone rings unexpectedly, my stomach drops. And I can't help but wonder if someday he'll make good on his promise. These are the stories of ordinary people who faced extraordinary terror. What would you do if it happened to you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't explain. This is The Haunting Hour. Until next time, stay safe and stay scared.